really quickly, we'll go through just kind of some general information, hopefully knock out some of those general questions, and then we'll get into your specifics. So do you want to talk about the anatomy of an applicant review?
Basically what happens when we receive your application after it's verified, we do an academic review in our office, basically based on our required science GPA, and that's Iowa State's prerequisite science GPA, and the last 45 credit GPA, which may be 52 credits. We don't split terms, so it's going to be at least 45 credits. Most likely it'll be more. We no longer require the GRE, so we do not use that in our academic review. This is all done in our office, so that the admissions committee does not see that when they do the committee review of your application. Again, the committee review covers all the things that are listed on this slide. This is what the committee looks at. The reason they don't see the academic review is they found that that influenced them too much. Good academics automatically meant a good, you had great animal research vet experience and everything else, or vice versa. If your academic review wasn't as good, then that tended to impact how they reviewed the rest of your application. They do not see that, so that they can go through all those areas that they are supposed to look at without that bias.
Great. Yes. Sorry, I forgot to put the other 50%. Oh, so both
it's 50-50 for academics, yep, and then 50 for the committee review.
Yep. Perfect. So, and like I said, we're just going to kind of blow through this generally, and then we'll get to your questions. So a few of you asked about tips for writing the essay. So in general, it's good to answer the question. It seems a little silly to say, but for a lot of students, it's easy to kind of get bogged down into everything that they want to say, all of the information they want the admissions committee to know, which is great. We want to know that information, or the admissions committee wants to know that information. However, you have to organize it in a way where you're actually answering that question.
The one thing we find is that students tend to want to make them into either a personal statement, or they want to reiterate their experiences, and that is not what they're looking for in the questions. They're looking for a specific answer to that one question.
Yeah, and using experience examples from examples that you gained doing that experience is great. You don't need to reiterate the experience though, or regurgitate that. So another tip obviously is proofread. So this goes to, you know, going to the writing center on your college campus, or talking to somebody who you know loves grammar. You know, proofread for grammar's sake, but also proofread, have somebody help you proofread for content as well. You know, do your paragraphs make sense? Do you, you know, did you point out all of the things, you know, that you were really excited about? Did you talk about, you know, did you go in depth? Did you talk about the medicine side of veterinary medicine? All of that kind of stuff. Proofread that. Definitely proofread all the way to the end of your essays. Sometimes, you know, translating it from your Microsoft Word or whatever you're using to the VMCAS website, sometimes it shortens your essay if you're right at that character limit. So definitely make sure you proofread all the way to the end. You also want to be realistic with your career goals. So, you know, when you get that question that says, what are your career goals? One, know that we're not holding you to that. We're not, you know, going to admit you because we need a certain number of small animal versus large animal people. So really talk about, you know, what your career goals are if you have them. The other thing is that, you know, be realistic as far as if you would like to open up, you know, a free clinic. Well, that's fantastic. But, you know, if you've learned about veterinary or veterinary education, you'll know that you will have possibly 6 figures, you know, of student loan debt. It's hard to open up a free clinic when you have that. So, you know, if you'd like to give back to your community and provide, you know, discounted services, talk about how you're going to offset that cost too. So really be realistic as far as that goes.
I was going to say also with the realistic with career goals, I guess, is that a lot of what we get is you want to help animals, you want to help the people with their animals, whether that be livestock or a small animal, but you totally leave out the medicine part. And that is extremely important, that you address what you enjoy about, like in your career goal. It's more than just helping somebody's pet dog. It has to be, okay, what do you enjoy about the medicine? Because it has so much more to do with what you're going to be spending your time doing than just saying you want to help somebody. If you just want to help animals and people, you can open a rescue, you can do things like that. So address the medicine part. People tend to leave that out of their application.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, excuse me. So the other thing we kind of talked about is use examples, back up that. Again, it's not regurgitating your experiences or anything like that, but, talk about, why, give some firm examples about why you want to be, or why you want your career, or why you came to the realization about your career goal. When you're talking about the attributes that veterinarians possess and your strengths, use examples for that. Back up your claims and everything. And then the last thing is be professional. So remember that you're going into a medical profession, you're going into a professional program, and it's not kind of a creative writing. Some students tend to, because we love our animals and we want to help animals and all of that kind of stuff, which is great. We forget about, that really it's a 4-year, very rigorous professional program. So it's less about, the cute and fluffy and more about, entering into the medical field. So.
And I tell people that when you read over your essays, think about them as if the same question was asked in a human medicine application. If you were applying to human medicine, would it make sense? Would it sound funny? Things like that, because again, that's something else people don't realize, is that veterinary medicine is as rigorous, if not more rigorous, than some of the human medicine programs.
Scrolling through here, a couple of essay specific questions. One is, does it matter, or is it important to reach the character limit on the essays? Like, do they want to bump up right against those limits, or? What
you want to have is a good essay within those limits. 3 or 4 sentences, no, that probably won't do you, but no, you don't have to fill up all the space. You need to have a good essay. You can't go over, so that's what limits people. But as Deanna said, proofread it. I had somebody that thought they were words, not characters in VMCAS. They had to, and it was somebody that didn't get in last year, so they had to cut their essays down, but they didn't reread them, and so they were really rambly, and it's like they were all disjointed, and that's because all they did was kind of cut down the words. So you want to have just a well-written, organized essay.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about the diversity question and kind of what we're looking for in that diversity question?
In the diversity question, they reworded it this year. They are just looking for how you feel you can support diversity if you are not of a diverse, I guess, underrepresented group. And even people in an underrepresented group, how are they going to, it's not just, it's how you are going to support diversity and interact with people that have different beliefs, different cultures than you, how you feel you can support interacting, and basically how can you talk to somebody when you don't necessarily agree with their beliefs or the way their culture works. So they want people to say how they can support this work with people that are different from yourself and that you may not always agree with, but you need to work with. So that's kind of what they're looking for. If you have examples of how you've done this before, if you've been in other cultures and realized it can be in veterinary medicine or something else, how maybe you can do one thing, you know, say as an American citizen, but it's not looked upon the same way in other cultures, things like that. They want to know how you're going to interact and not just kind of, you know, kind of, how do you say, disregard somebody because of their beliefs, and how you feel you're going to be able to support that and work with that.
Yep, absolutely. And so I know that there was another question about the attributes question, you know, is there a certain number of attributes that's like the golden number, or can you
there is no golden number. I would say pick probably 2 or 3 that you feel are most important. You don't want to just a litany like you've Googled it and you come up with all these attributes a veterinarian should have. You want to look for something that you've possibly observed in your experiences that you feel is important because you've seen it. That's the best way to look at it. But again, 2 or 3 max. You don't want to just go on and on with all the different. There's a lot of different attributes that are important. What they're looking for is what you have seen from your experiences, because they want you to be able to support it, not just say, well, I believe they need to communicate, they need to be compassionate, they need to be, and go on and on. They want just a few with some backup justification of why you feel those are some of the most important ones.
Yeah. And then as far as like how they organize their essay, does it need to be a formal introduction, body, conclusion, or is it more of like a long response, or?
Just have it go in some type of order. Generally, we tell people it is nice to say, you know, if you're going to answer, if you know you want to be a large animal practitioner, or at least that's what you think you want to be now, state that up front. Don't try to kind of wiggle around till you get to it. Just say, you know, currently my goal is, or what I believe I want to do before you're in vet school, is I want to be a large animal practitioner. Then go on to support your reasons for wanting to do that. So I would say answer the question as concisely as you can in your first sentence, and then go on down with the rest of it, supporting why you want to do that.
Great. Okay. Great essay questions. So we're going to keep on rolling with our general information. Then we'll kind of circle back to some of the specific questions that you've been putting in the chat. I mean, in the Q&A, please remember to use the Q&A, not the chat. I haven't even looked at the chat in a while, so hopefully nobody's putting them in there. Okay, so what makes an outstanding applicant? You can kind of see there some of our tips, or you know what we're looking for. So of course, one is shows an understanding of the profession. Again, that goes back to Kathy's comment about, you know, really looking at the medicine side of things. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways to work with animals, to work with people as well. What is it about the profession, that medicine piece, that you're really excited about? And what do you know about the profession, and specifically the medicine side of the profession, or the research side of the profession, or whatever you're, you know, interested in? Obviously, like you saw from our anatomy of an applicant, we do look for a well-rounded student. So a student who has never left the classroom is probably not going to score as high as someone who's, you know, got great grades, has left the classroom, you know, gone into a veterinary clinic or a research lab, has done some, you know, some extracurricular activities as well.
They want people that are not just solely focused on veterinary medicine or animals. They want to know that you have interests outside of that. Yep,
absolutely. And specifically interests in, you know, volunteerism and leadership too. So those are very important to our admissions committee. And then, you know, someone who recognizes that, you know what, after I get out of vet school, I'm still going to be learning. I'm still going to be doing continuing education. And it's important to learn about, all kinds of different things, not just about, if you're in private practice, not just about private practice, but what's going on in the profession as a whole. So recognizing that you're, kind of signing up to be a lifelong learner is really important to our committee as well.
And in this well-rounded, this is actually where we have a large amount of people that are just good, solid, average students. They probably succeed in any vet school. But when you show these other things, different community, being involved with your community, developing leadership skills, things like that, that's what can raise you above being just an average student. Because a lot of our students have very similar experiences. They have very good grades, and they're just this big group of students right in the middle when we rank them. And so some of this other can now bring you up above that. So that's why it is important for you to pay attention to that as well.
Absolutely. Okay. So we're going to get up on our soapbox a little bit,
Yeah.
and not that we haven't all, for the last 20 minutes or so, but so these are things that we see students who maybe would be fantastic students, but these are some of the things that can trip students up, and honestly be the difference between getting into vet school and not. As I don't know, silly or interesting as it seems, asking yourself, like, making sure that application is complete, making sure your transcripts are in, your letters of recommendation are in, your essays are written. It has happened before where, a student has submitted an essay or an application where their essays don't actually have their essays. They say, copy essay here or insert, essay here. You guys know that in order to move on to a next section, you have to have something in each text box. So go back, do yourself a favor, and just read through your application one more time before you hit submit. Again, we were talking about, those essays, are your answers succinct, whether that's the essay questions, the experiences that you're doing. Make sure that, it says what you want it to say and not a lot of extra fluff. Obviously, get the materials in by the deadline. We have, let's see, it's the 4th today, so we have 13 days left. This is the time that if you haven't gotten, received transcripts, if you haven't, heard from your recommenders, if you see something that may be, a complication for your application, get in touch with Kathy, get in touch through the message board and say, hey, I'm worried about this, and Kathy right now has a chance to help you. On the 17th, it's too late,
The other thing is, please do not submit your application on the 17th at all, but definitely not an hour or so before the deadline. There are a lot of people that come back, every year we have this, that say, well, I had computer problems, various things like this. We can't do anything about it. We will not, VMCAS shuts down. We will not grant you anything because of that. I would say if you can get it in a week before the deadline, that would be great, because if something comes up or you see something isn't working, you're still missing an evaluation or something like that, you can get in touch with me. If you submit it on the 17th, there's absolutely nothing I can do for you at that point in time. So you just need to be at least a week ahead of time, so that you still have a chance to take care of any problems that may arise.
Absolutely. And kind of going off of that, make sure that you're checking, for correspondence. The way that we at Iowa State communicate with our applicants is through the message board, which is on the supplemental application portal. That's a really great way, because then essentially all of your information is all in one spot versus having to either on our end or your end go back and search for different email conversations. Definitely read that carefully and then respond as soon as you can, because if those things do arise, then you've done that. And follow up. I mean, you know what, this is your future, right? This is your future career. This is the next 4 years. So it's okay to be persistent with, whether it's your institutions that you're looking for transcripts from, those evaluators. Now, obviously you want to be nice, because if they still got evaluations pending, you want to be nice about that. But definitely it's okay to say, hey, vet school is crazy important to me. Is there anything, that I can help with as far as that recommender goes? Follow up with, with us on the message board as well. If you see something that's on your status, or, something that that you sent in 2 weeks ago and it still hasn't been received, let us know about that. Double check with that. Now, obviously, if you sent in your check yesterday, it's going to take some time to get that
we have to
changed,
we have to do things manually, so you do have to give us a little bit of time. But if you are really concerned, email us. Or not, excuse me, don't email us, send us a message on the message board. We'll respond to you on that. But do give us, don't expect, we do not mark your application as received until it's verified by VMCAS. And so that sometimes takes some time to get through that process. The other thing I should mention is that when you only need to submit your application, have it paid for to VMCAS by the 17th, it's going to take time. I think usually they tell us by October 31st, they'll have all of the applications they have verified. So don't worry about submitting and not having it verified and having everything done by the 17th. You just have to have it to VMCAS and submit it.
Sorry.
I think we just died. There we go.
We're back. Hopefully you guys didn't lose us. So yes, yep, perfect. Okay, just a few helpful links. I can send a follow-up email with these links in it as well. But on our apply page, that's where you'll find a nice application checklist. There's information there as far as like where you'll send transcripts, for where you'll send your fall transcripts, all of that kind of stuff. If you're interested in getting in touch with a current CBM student, I can help facilitate that. So just shoot me an email. We'll also have some student panels coming up and everything for you too. And then obviously AAVMC, AVMA, and then studentdoctor.net is a really good resource and a really good kind of social media or social networking sort of site. The one caveat to that is that you always want to verify the information that's coming across there unless it comes from our direct, official account. So there's current students on there, there's future students on there that are very great. They've got, they can give you a lot of support, but please know that you want to double check any information on there to make sure it's correct. So just a plug for some of our upcoming events. We have a undergraduate, specifically undergraduate pre-vet visit day on October 12th. More information about that and registration will come out on Monday. Then we have class of 2024 preview day. So that's specifically for students that will be offered admission or be offered a spot on our wait list. Those will be on March 28th and April 4th. Registration for that, that's a kind of save the date sort of thing right now. Registration for that will open up when offers go out in mid-February. And then stay tuned because we'll do more webinars like this. I'm happy to do a Skype call or set up a Skype call with you and maybe a couple students. And then we'll offer some kind of virtual tours and everything. So stay tuned for that. You'll get an email with that information too. And then just so you have it, if you want to take a screenshot or something, here's the application calendar. Obviously, applications close on September 17th. So depending on when your application checklist went out, it may have the wrong date for fall transcripts due. So the official date is January 20th. Mid-February is when our decisions will be made. So that's kind of the cutoff date. You will know if you have been admitted. you have a spot on our wait list, or if your application has been declined. And then that official kind of acceptance deadline is April 15th. And then July 1st, you'll need to send in your transcripts for the spring. Again, that application checklist on our website will have the email addresses and hard snail mail addresses for where you'll send in your transcripts for those. So now we are going to get rolling. We've got officially 30 minutes or so left. We'll
Pretty good.
Hopefully stay on the line too to answer email or answer questions if we can't get them all done in a half an hour, but please continue submitting those. We've got some really great questions. The first question and the first couple of questions are about kind of experience. So how do you recommend formatting experience? Like bullet points, paragraphs? What do you know, especially for that description, I think.
For the description, I am not sure how much VMCAS, how much area when you bullet things, how much that cuts down on how you can, how much you can put in. Things that are fine is just a listing. Your responsibilities are, you know, I don't know, instructing clients when they get their, you know, when they pick up their animal. Could be monitoring, you know, and giving medications, things like that. You can just put those in a list. That is fine. Probably want to put the most important responsibilities first, just because if you have a tremendously long list, you're going to lose the committee towards the end of that list. So I'd put your most important responsibilities first. I would like to say bullets, but I think that cuts down on the amount of room you have to actually put things in that description page. I would love to tell people, I have, and VMCAS doesn't allow this. It will come up in chronological order no matter what you put down for your experiences. However, I tell people, unless it's a unique experience, don't put down some small 3 hours here, 2 hours there, 10 hours here, especially if you have some longer experiences. They're probably going to be considered as a little bit more important than these short ones, unless they're incredibly unique. We did have a person that was allowed to scrub in on a surgery done on a gorilla because their parent happened to be an anesthesiologist in that situation. That's a unique experience. It was 4 hours long. But that's something unique, and the person did kind of reflect on, you know, how much, because this was actually done in a human hospital. So that was unique. Yes, that something like that should be included. But if it's, you know, you shadowed a large animal that on calls for 4 hours one day, if you have longer experiences, that probably isn't an important one to put down.
So along with that, we've got a question about what kinds of experiences we're looking for. So we're looking for specifically 200 or more hours of quality veterinary experience. Obviously, we talked about any experience that you are looking, or that, you know, is volunteerism, any experience where you're developing yourself as a leader are very good as well. And we're not just looking for only animal related experience. So you may have experience working in retail. Please let us know that. A lot of, obviously a lot of veterinary medicine is working with people, and you learn a lot about working with people in those retail jobs too. So we're looking, like Kathy said, for kind of those meaningful experiences. Not all of them, you know, we understand are going to be veterinary related. Some of them are. So definitely give us a view of that well-roundedness.
Put those in extracurricular. Extracurricular does not need to be associated with your institution. We look for college activities, we look for high school activities, but those are activities done during the time you were in high school, the time you were in college. And it can be those people that are coming back for a second career or coming into veterinary medicine now after having another career. It can be what you've done during that time. All that needs to go under extracurricular, even though it may not be necessarily an institution-related experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've got another question here about, one of the things that they'll do is put down their contact person for a certain experience. Is it okay to say, please don't contact this person? They have that option. I just didn't know if it was frowned upon,
I think that would raise a red flag as to why, unless you're going to put something in the explanation page, telling somebody. Very seldom do our committee members call people, but I think that would almost set up a red flag, stating, wondering why, you're putting this down, but, what's wrong, I guess. Mm-hmm. If you would like to explain that in some area, then that might be, okay. Again, that would I would think that would set up a red flag.
Great. Yeah, I agree. So going back to extracurricular activities, mm-hmm. essentially means anything that it wasn't a job, right? Or wasn't kind of specifically veterinary or animal related. So we have gotten the question before that, is it extracurricular if it's not through my specific high school or college institution? That's okay. Mostly we're looking for, things that you've done during that time or even outside of school. It does not
it can be a church youth mm-hmm. group, various like Kiwanis and various community organizations. Mm-hmm. So it does not need to be related to your school mm-hmm. at all.
Yep. Hopefully that helped. If you have further questions about that, let us know. So then the other things I'm talking about, kind of experiences in high school. So it's good to put high school experiences in, correct?
It's important. They look at athletics, if you did anything with the teams in the high school. 4-H, FFA, very important. And those are almost always through high school, sometimes into college. But so they're looked upon, depending upon what the experience was, they're very much looked at. So I don't neglect your high school activities because you think they're not relevant, because oftentimes they are.
Yeah. So what about like something like babysitting?
Probably not. It would have to be more organized than that. I know it's a lot of responsibility, but there's really no way to kind of prove what you've done that way. So it would need to be a more organized, it's just like pet ownership. Some schools use this, Iowa State does not, because there is no way to determine what your responsibilities actually were with that animal, unless it was a business. If you actually had a training business during high school or a breeding business, things like that they use. However, if you just, you own 2 dogs and 3 cats, we do not even use that experience. You can put it down because I know some schools do, but our committee does not look at that.
Yeah, and I guess I forgot my disclaimer at the beginning.
Oh yes.
But essentially, everything that we're talking about here, right, is for our admissions committee, is for Iowa State, for our admissions process. So this is what we're going to evaluate, but like Kathy said, you may put it in because other schools are really looking for that. So for example, we have a question about, if we don't have very much research experience, will you still be admitted? For us? Yeah. For other schools, possibly not. So you want to make sure that you're in communication just like you are with us for those other schools too. But so yeah, that question about research experience. Now, if you say, in your career goals that you would love to be a researcher and develop new, medications and stuff, and you've not had any research experience, that may be a little bit of a red flag, because our admissions committee will wonder if you really know what all goes into that research, and those developments of new therapies and stuff. If your career goal is to go into private practice or work in the industry or something like that, you may not need that, research experience. So that should be something that, if it's a passion of yours, definitely do research, and let us know about it. If it's not, that's okay too. We're not specifically looking for research.
We look at, for us, you can have, again, we look at 200-hour minimum of quality experience, but it can all be large animal, it can all be small animal, it can all be research, depending upon what your goals are. If your goals fit in with your experience, that's what they're looking for. Again, don't say you want to be a large animal veterinarian if you only have small animal experience. Mm-hmm. Things like that. So that's where it is. But if you know what you want to do is be a feline veterinarian, then go right ahead, as long as you've got some experience in that area. But it can be all in that area if that's what you want to do. We don't need the other.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So a few more questions about experience, and then I think we probably should move on to some coursework questions and stuff like that. So another question that I've gotten a couple of different iterations of, essentially, if you're doing, animal experience as part of a class, so whether that's a vet program that's study abroad that you're getting, course credit for, or something like an animal science, animal handling class, do you put that in as a class as well as an experience?
We do not. That's the other thing that we do not use is coursework. Our admissions committee will not use coursework as experience. So if you're doing, exercise physiology, and you're working and handling horses, that's not an animal experience, according to our admissions committee. The experience, they expect to be something that you go out and get within the area. It's not like how to handle animals or the various animal husbandry courses. It's not beef production, things like that. They do not use coursework. They want that to be something that you go out on your own and get. They don't want a canned experience for you. The one exception is internships. If you get an internship and get academic credit, but it's with an outside practice or industry, whatever, or with a researcher, that they will consider as experience. So that's kind of where the difference comes, but just general coursework, no. International, however, would be something to look at within the diversity question. That if it's a study abroad course, depending upon what you do, again, if it's with a private practice, most study abroads are really canned, so that you don't have a lot of free time to do different things. So from that angle, no, it wouldn't be an experience, but definitely from the angle of the diversity question, it would be great.
Okay. So should volunteer experiences outside of an institution be listed as an extracurricular or as a volunteer? So yeah, volunteer. I would
remember
put them in as volunteer.
As volunteer.
But something like an honor society, band or something like that could be
extracurricular.
Yes, could be extracurricular. Okay, so we are going to transition to talking a little bit more about coursework and things like that. Feel free to still, get those experience questions in, upvote them, and we will do our best to answer them in the time allotted. But we could probably do a whole webinar on how to enter experiences. so great questions. We're going to kind of switch gears, but we'll come back. First question that a lot of people wanted to know about is if they hit submit on their application, can evaluators still send in a letter?
Yes, they can. VMCAS will consider your application complete for verification purposes with no evaluations. So you submit, they have until the deadline. So basically, the only thing they're up against is that 11:59 deadline on September 17th.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I know we were going to go into coursework, but we're going to do some of these kind of popular questions first, and I promise they'll lead into coursework. So, so this next question is about interviews. So it says, when do interviews take place? Actually, for Iowa State, we no longer require an interview. We no longer interview, I should say. It's not that it's required or not, we just don't do it. So essentially, what we're looking at, like we talked about, is that 50% academics, 50% committee review. But instead of us interviewing you, those 2 dates in the spring that I talked about essentially is your time to interview us. So definitely, I can go back to the slide actually. Mark those 2 dates down. What you'll have an opportunity to do that day is ask any questions about Iowa State, about our program, about our students, all of that kind of stuff. We have faculty and student panels, a tour, some time to have a conversation with the dean and talk with financial aid representatives and all of that. So, so we kind of flipped that. Instead of us interviewing you, you get to interview us. To make sure that we're the right school for you. The rest of our application review is all about, making sure that you're the right student for us. So you get to do the in-person interview that's kind of flipped, which is hopefully cool for you guys as well as for us. So we're excited about those preview days, but know that you will not have to interview, and that those preview days do not impact your application at all. That's why we put them after the offers go out. Thank you. Sorry. And then, if you cannot make it to one of those days, that's totally fine. We'll do kind of virtual versions of all of those elements in the at those preview days throughout the year too. So you'll see webinars coming up, a conversation with the dean and financial aid and student panels and all of that good stuff. So, so yes, you can save your interview jitters and energy for other schools that you're applying to. Okay, so question about the MPH. What's the best timeline to apply for an MPH or other dual degree programs?
With the exception of the MBA, because the MBA starts with the first year doing MBA coursework, we encourage people to wait 1 semester. Find out what you're doing and how you're doing in vet med before you take on extra work. So that's our general. You can apply for the first semester as well. It's just that that's sometimes overwhelming. So we really encourage people to have at least 1 semester behind them before they decide to do any type of concurrent degree.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, so I am going to skip over the questions that talk about our program. Like I said, we'll do kind of that, more offerings for that throughout the year. If you do have questions about our program specifically, we'll try and hang on at the end and talk about those. But you can also, please feel free to give me a shout, phone, email. I'm happy to talk to you about those things. We just want to keep it focused on, what you guys need to know to submit that application in a couple weeks. And I understand that programming is probably one of those things, but we want to talk about specifically the application. So, and when entering classes that meet your prerequisite requirements, do you prefer us to enter in all the classes that we've taken that meet a specific requirement, especially if certain classes exceed that requirement, or just the minimum of what the prerequisite requires?
Just the minimum of the prerequisite. We will be looking through your transcript And basically, before we go to your listing, we will be looking through your transcript. What we need for you to enter those is because sometimes some of the courses do not appear to be courses that just by looking at your transcript, we know it's not a biology 1 or a biology 2 or a chemistry 1. So if we don't see something, then we look at what you have written and think you believe fulfill that requirement. We don't want a whole long list of courses, but what you feel best fulfills that requirement, so that we can take a closer look at that class.
Mm-hmm. So do we allow a degree to like be a supplemental for, you know, prerequisites like English comp and?
Right. The degree, if you will have your degree by the end of the spring term in 2020, that will count for half of the English, 3 semester credits of English comp, and it will take the place of 3 credits of the oral communication. If you have a biology degree that's just general biology, not microbiology or environmental biology, if it's just a general biology degree, that will fulfill the 2 semesters of general biology.
Great. Okay. So, oh no, I lost where I was. There I am. What about a zoology course with lab? Does that fulfill part of the biology?
Depending upon what your school has, we use general zoology to fulfill the organismal portion of general biology if you do not have a general biology 1 and 2 course. Okay. And with that, you would need a cellular biology as well.
I think a good rule of thumb for questions like those is if you can email Kathy, especially giving the where you're taking that course, the course number,
the department
name,
number.
Yep.
Because I get questions like these and they say, well, if I take this, well, it depends upon where you're taking it, things like that. So if you're concerned about, you know, a specific course, just email me with the institution, the course department, number, title, and I can get back to you on that.
Okay, great. So let's see, going up here again, so switching gears a little bit more. So let's see, let's stick with classes if you can humor us for just a few more minutes, and then we'll go back to some experience questions that have been rolling in. So do those January 2020 transcripts, do those have an impact on their ranking, or
yes,
when decisions are made?
Before decisions are made, we will update your GPAs with any coursework. We will update the last 45 for sure. And then if you've taken any prerequisites at that time or repeated any prerequisites in the fall, we will update your GPAs. So those GPAs are updated prior to decisions being made.
And so with that, then they need to put in all of their classes, not just the prerequisites, correct?
Right. Right.
And that goes for planned courses as
right.
well?
Yep. Okay. We need, and that's one thing we really do need to know. If you're short prerequisites, we need to know you're planning on taking them in the fall or in the spring, so that we don't write you a letter saying, hey, you're deficient. We don't see that you're taking this course. So putting your planned courses down helps us a lot. Great.
So do you round up for credit hour conversions from quarter to semester?
Generally, yes.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay, perfect. So I think we've gotten most of the specific like course or transcript questions. There was another question here that I had submitted earlier that was about if you've added coursework in our kind of in the program information and it's not showing up in your VMCAS, just kind of general coursework, contact VMCAS about that. I would say, unless you have a tip for that.
No.
Essentially any like glitchy things that you're coming across in VMCAS, please contact VMCAS. We don't have a way to access the back end. And in fact, it's, we know our supplemental application pretty much backwards and forwards, but VMCAS is kind of its own entity. They are very good about answering questions, though, very helpful. So definitely contact them if you're, coming across issues like that. Okay, so just kind of general questions. We've got 5 minutes left of our kind of official meeting, but so we understand if students need, if you guys need to duck out or log off, that's totally fine. We'll just keep on rolling until we don't have any questions left, or until one of us loses our voice or something like that.
Like you.
Yeah, like me. So is someone more likely to get in if they have been in clubs versus someone who hasn't? Does it matter how long, or does it not matter as long as they have good experiences in other places? How important are clubs, essentially?
Clubs are just one of the well-rounded part of it. If you're not in pre-vet club, that's not going to make a big difference. They like to see leadership. That doesn't necessarily need to be in a club, but some experiences, and it may be your veterinary experience already shows you some leadership if you're training techs or something like that. But it can also be leadership anytime. It's considered a leadership experience anytime you have to take a group of people and get them together to work together to get something accomplished. So it doesn't have to be I'm president or I'm the supervisor. It can be if you are in charge of some community function and you have to say, get all the bake sale people together and get them to run a bake sale for fundraising. That's a leadership experience as long as you're in charge of that. So those are the types of things that you don't have to belong to a bunch of clubs. In fact, if you belong to too many, that's almost a red flag in itself, because you can't really focus on anything if you are a member of 10 different clubs. You're not really learning something from any one of them at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So are you, so this question is, are you more likely to accept a student that has extensive planning in their career or someone who's not very sure? How does that look if you're,
Oh, we don't care. If you say, yes, I really like the field, give some information on what you've done to expose yourself to the profession, and what you enjoy about it, and just say, I am not sure. I don't know exactly what I want to do with it. A lot of people come in that way. A lot of people are sure of their career and then still come out doing something totally different. So that in itself does not make a difference. However, if you haven't exposed yourself at that point to some different areas of the profession, that's when I'd say you need more than one type of experience. If you're not sure, but you've only exposed yourself to small animal medicine, you need something to back up saying, I'm not sure, I've looked at this, but I'm still not exactly sure what I want to do. And so that's where you need to expose yourself to several different things, just so you can say, hey, I'm looking at these things, but I'm not sure. They won't care. That doesn't make a difference.
Absolutely. So another question about experience. What about human medical experience or human medical research? Or, I know this one talks about assisting, but also.
Please put it down. We had 1 year an EMT who basically just put under employment that he was an EMT for, I don't know, it was like a couple of years. And so anyway, that's all he did though. Said nothing in at that time it was a personal statement about the correlations between human medicine. He may have, as an EMT, he could come in, one of his clients might be unconscious, just like an animal. The person can't talk. They need to find out, did this person take something they shouldn't have? things like that. Same thing with an animal. You just correlate it to how, that will help you in veterinary medicine. So yes, that's extremely important. And so don't leave it out just because it's not with animals.
Mm-hmm. Great. A couple of questions from our Nebraska students. Hi, Nebraska. A couple just on how the review process works for our Nebraska students. So that 2+2 program. Essentially, yes, they still interview. Do you want to kind of talk about how that works?
We do the academic review. We make sure that you have all the requirements that you need, and calculate GPAs. We then send it to Nebraska, and from then on, it's theirs. They still have interviews. They have a much smaller admissions committee. Everybody sees everything on their admissions committee, whereas our committee won't see any of the academics until they see composite scores on ranked lists. So it is different. We just make sure that you're qualified, have everything that we require. Then it goes to Nebraska, and then they take over as to how they want to handle the rest of the evaluation. Mm-hmm. But it is still, it's 50-25 for the committee review and 25 for the interview.
Great. Okay. So can we talk just a little bit about the explanation statement? This is one that got sent in early. So is that a good place to talk about, like a learning disability or, a medical thing or,
That, okay, there's two ways to look at that. Yes, that is an excellent, if nobody has to disclose any disabilities, but if they care to, and how they've overcome them and how they work with them, that's an excellent, and that would be something very excellent to put in there. It won't have a bearing necessarily on the rubric that we have, but it will, it gives the committee a feeling that you're mature, you understand, that when you come to vet school, you've already figured this stuff out. That's with disabilities, but it can also be something like, you can tell them that, hey, I didn't do so well my first 2 semesters because I partied, or I was in a car accident, or we usually use it for something that a person has overcome and what they learned from overcoming that, how they're going to handle it now. Some people will put in, well, I got an F in organic chemistry the first time around, but I'm taking it again. I don't suggest that you use it for that. That just highlights one poor instance that you had. It's more for a lifelong situation that you've overcome. It may be somebody that says, I had no support from my parents. It took me 6 years to get through undergrad because I had to work full-time to support myself. So that's, those are the types of things we look for. Again, if you put down something that you think they're going to question for whatever reason on your application, it can be simply, I know I worked, with this veterinarian for 3 years and I don't have a reference from them. They passed away. They moved to Europe. But for whatever reason that you want to explain to them why you don't have a reference, because that's something else. If you've worked for a considerable time with a veterinarian and then don't have a reference from that veterinarian, they do question that. So those are the other things we use it for.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. How would you weigh a master's degree versus a bachelor's degree?
It's looked at maturity wise, but it really doesn't give you additional points.
Okay. Okay. So, if you're going to get an award soon, but it won't be finished until after September 17th. Do you still list it?
Not if you haven't. It's just like experiences. We cannot count things, and the committee will not look at experiences you haven't had yet. People always want to say, well, this doesn't start until October or December. Our committee actually will think it's just, well, you don't feel you have enough experience and you want to add that on because you haven't gone through it yet. Anything that you don't have by the deadline, you don't want to put down because it hasn't happened yet.
Yep. Great. So kind of going back to planned coursework then, which we do need, not planned events or awards or anything, but planned coursework we do need. So you just put that in the transcript section.
Right. It's just you should be able to select, you put down whatever fall 2019 and you put down the courses you're taking.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see here. Do international applicants go through the same application process as in-state applicants?
Everything is exactly the same. They're considered in the non-resident, non-contract applicant pool, which is our largest applicant pool, but yes.
So for our supplemental application, where it says, list, your 5 most, thank you for knowing. You guys know what I'm talking about too, right?
Sorry.
So would you just list those, or are they looking for a little description?
No, they will take the description from what is on VMCAS. The problem is our committee started doing that because people will have pages of awards and activities. They don't want to go through 3 pages of awards and activities. They want to know, okay, which are you feel are most important to you, and for the description, they will go, actually, our programmer puts them there so they can see the description as well. But yes, you just need to list them just because they wanted people to shorten the amount of activities and everything that they had to go through.
Yeah, great. So what about placement test scores? Would those be listed?
Okay. If you took advanced placement coursework and got credit, shows on your transcript with a course equated to it, say biology 211, and it says AP or P, you don't need to send us scores because if we take that course and they say you got advanced placement for it, we'll take that course as a prerequisite. The one time that we have problems is if it says advanced placement 15 credits. We have no idea what those courses, what they gave you those 15 credits for. In that case, you can either send us copies of the scores, but they have to match Iowa State, what Iowa State would accept for those. Or you can get your degree audit, send us your degree audit, which oftentimes has the exact courses that they use the AP for, but it doesn't show on your transcript. I know that's kind of confusing. Please feel free to email me. We do use AP credits. It's just what you have to do to get us to use them, what documentation you have to have.
Okay, so how competitive is it for out-of-state students?
Fairly competitive. That is our largest. It's our largest applicant pool, but it's also the applicant pool that we lose the most people out of because top students, out-of-state students, they're going to be top students probably at whatever vet schools they've applied to. Therefore, number one, they get into their home state, they'll be gone. And a lot of our students that apply have home state schools. So those are the people that have, basically a lot of say in where they go. So we lose a lot out of that pool. I think we went through a total of 200 and some odd applicants total from the start of the list to fill our class this year. And that is not unusual just because we lose a lot of people because, again, a lot of them have home state schools. They are still probably in the top 30% of veterinary students applying. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. We lose a lot, but we also have a lot. So it is our most competitive applicant pool. So somebody that has, I tell people in the non-resident pool, you want to be looking at a 3.2, we don't use it, but a 3.2 CUME that generally will get most of your courses within a competitive range for the non-resident.
Great. Okay, good questions. So we're looking for the classes that we would be taking spring of 2020 in the transcript, like planned courses as well.
We need to see that. Number one, if it has prerequisite. If you're admitted, we need to know that, because then we can say you're completing your prerequisites. We also need to know if you're admitted, to look for a transcript from you for that time period, because we need that to complete your file. It's not so important if you are not admitted or on the alternate list. At that point, you don't need to send us, but if you're admitted and are accepting, or if you're on the alternate list and are still considering us, we need to have that transcript in, and we need to know what you're taking on that transcript.
Yep. Great. So, and I'm just going down the list here, so hopefully the questions have slowed down, but we're still getting some. So what about, kind of going back to the explanation statement, that's an optional question, correct? They
right.
don't have to.
If there's nothing in there, that's fine.
Okay.
It doesn't make any difference.
Great. And then kind of thinking along the same lines, kind of going back to those testing questions. So if they tested out of like English 100, would they list that?
Yes, they would list that, and we take that. Again, we just need to have some type of documentation from the school that they are using that as your English comp or your writing requirement.
Yeah. And going along, I don't know, it's kind of related, but mostly a tangent. So we no longer require or evaluate your GRE scores too. So kind of going along the testing lines, we won't evaluate you based on your GRE scores. You don't have to send them into us. If I no longer have a valid contact information for a primary supervisor, what happens in that situation? Should they list somebody that they worked with? Should they,
you should probably maybe list a general phone number, general contact. It can just be, I don't know, city veterinary clinic, and their general number, if it's something like that. Again, extremely rarely do people ever call these people, but occasionally it does happen because of questions that they have based on a recommendation or something like that. Or things just sound really different. There's been some where one they called a recommendation because this girl had such a litany of bad things that had happened to her that it was almost unbelievable. They did call a reference about it and found out that it was all true. But it really, the way it was written, they were concerned that it was a little bit overboard, so they did call a person. Again, very rarely, maybe 2 or 3 people are called the entire application cycle, and we get, well over 1,000 applications. So it's not something that happens frequently, but I would put something down, like a general phone number or something, just so that they know to not have anything there. I had one person that I reviewed for an unsuccessful application review that had no supervisor listed on anything. And that's kind of funny when you don't have at least a phone number and some type of contact for that experience or something like that. So that's why I say put something down. Yeah.
Kind of a question that goes along the in-state versus out-of-state and residency questions. So does Iowa State consider someone who's in the military as a resident, or?
If you're in the military, I believe so. I am not an expert on that. You can always call our registrar's office and they will tell you. I think if you have I don't know what the form is, but there's a specific form. Yes, you can get in-state. I just don't know all the ins and outs, and I don't want to be the one to say yes for sure for everything. But yes, if you are in the military, I am fairly certain that, and you could also call the Veteran Center here on campus, that you can get in-state tuition for that.
Yeah. And then kind of along the lines of other residency, essentially if you would like more information, about becoming a resident or your resident status, you can contact registrar at iastate.edu. Or contact one of us, and we'll
I was
get
going to
you-
say, I'll get you the people.
Okay, more
I have
information.
contacts there that
There you go.
I'll give you the website and then the contacts there that you can contact. I do not know all the ins and outs of residency, and so I hate to tell people that for sure, yes, you can get residency.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, awesome. So one last question that we got submitted up beforehand was, what does a primary school mean?
Primary school is your main school and where you got your degree. That is generally considered your primary school.
Great.
So you might have gone and taken a few courses at a couple of community colleges, whatever, but you're graduating from Purdue, and so Purdue would be your primary school.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and happy application finishing here in the next week or two. So yeah, great. Thank you guys.